Hi, Leah.
Hey, Judy.
We are back on The Anatomy of Ancestral Alchemy, and we were just chatting earlier and going to talk about moving all this energy.
We both have a lot of it this morning. Most days these days.
Yeah. And figured out what we could talk about, which is little. So before we go into it, I wanted to set up the stage. Last week, Leah and I do this, like we go to Pilates, we kind of work and like process stuff out. And I just like during Pilates was using that time to move the level of rage and grief out of my body. And I just wanted to be able to talk with that as a tool of alchemizing.
Yep.
Does that
That's
sound
great.
okay? What do you remember about that like time? Like how do you, I don't,
About that Pilates session.
yeah.
What I remember is that you had already walked in feeling a lot of rage and were very clear that like you needed to move some anger through your system. And I remember a lot of deep breaths and moments where you were really like pushing a lot of that through your body as you were working out. And then at the end, there were a lot of hip openers.
Oh, those
Um,
fucking hip openers.
so for those of you that aren't aware, the psoas, it's connected into our hip muscles and our gut, right? Sacral root chakra stores a lot of emotion. And so anytime there are hip openers, which is what happened at the end, they're often releases. And I remember you actually naming that after it was like just what you said, oh, those hip openers. So we were in a moment of that where I think we were doing like an open butterfly
I see.
and you just started wailing. Yeah, that's what I remember.
So let's start with the hip openers first. Is the body is connected to emotional processing and what we're dealing with as well. So if you have issues in your lower back, it's probably because your adrenal glands are like hyperactive because the adrenals sit on the kidneys. And so like you can learn a lot from what you're feeling in your body. Okay. The reason I was like, oh, those friggin' hip openers is because the hips are actually protective, especially in bodies assigned female at birth.
Yeah.
We've been talking a lot about ancestral trauma and the impact of epigenetics. It would be remiss if we just don't name that for bodies assigned female at birth, particularly in this time and historically, have been crossed. So the ways that we've extracted and crossed boundaries on land is the repetition that we've done on female bodies. And so epigenetically, for me at least, there's a lot of trauma that's stored in my hips, particularly. And so when I release it, it activates some collective memory for me. And what I learned is not to avoid releasing, even though I want to just be like tight as fuck. But when I release it, I allow the movement and the tears to come when it releases. It was interesting though, when I started wailing, I actually got nervous about activating your trauma or Ivan, who was instructing us. So yeah, I wasn't sure. Did it activate anything in you?
Yeah, it did activate something in me, but it wasn't actually for myself. It was for you. It was just like, yeah, there's deep grief there. And so there was empathy that I was feeling. And at one point I even just put out my arms so that I was like a little bit closer to you, but not touching you. Yeah. Yeah.
Just taking in that nibble of sweetness. In my body, as an Asian American woman, I'm always conscientious of how I impact other people in spaces due to needing to create safety in a lot of different bodies so that I can stay safe. And so what I noticed was when I was crying, I got really worried that I would inconvenience people in the room or have to take care of other bodies because of what I was going to bring up too.
Yeah.
I don't know how that lands when I'm transparent about that in me.
That makes sense. Yeah. It totally makes sense to me why you would feel that way. And I see it happen for you. Like I can get that sense from you in the moment.
Like a shrinking in.
Yes. Or sometimes you'll apologize.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Zooming out for the viewers or the listeners for this podcast, like us sharing stories is a window into you and getting to know, like when you show up in your full authenticity, do you shrink down and apologize for what comes up? Or do you own it? Or do you get defensive and go into big size? So just really notice, because that's going to be information for you on how to move something through your body instead of just be reactive without thinking about what's happening.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing I have noticed, because we've been doing Pilates together now for almost, I think, over a year on Saturday mornings. And what I've noticed is with time, again, completely understandable, but with time and space, you've allowed yourself to go there in deeper ways with us. But it took feeling out the safety of the people you were with, obviously. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you're bringing me back. Because when you first invited me, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I remember being so scared of making mistakes. And it did take me a while to vet for safety. I remember there was one moment that I thought, like, I heard a tone where I disappointed someone and I started crying. I remember that too. So back to the topic for today, it's like, how do you use whatever's coming through you to clear it out rather than shut it back down? And part of that one is to feel safe enough to do it.
Yeah. That's right.
And so for me, I create safety of, I'm going to be okay with allowing this to come through me. And then if it activates someone, I'm also going to be okay to clear it up with you.
Yeah.
Knowing that I'm not responsible for what comes up in you.
Yes, that's right.
Unless I'm telling you like you're bad or whatever. But my feelings, my reactions, if it triggers an emotion in you, you're supposed to take care of it.
That's right. Yeah, especially because this wasn't intentional. It wasn't malicious. It wasn't anything that you needed to take accountability for. It's different when those factors show up in a space. That was not the case here. Yeah.
So since rage is the predominant emotion we started with, shall we talk about how to move it
Sure.
out?
Yeah. So for me, there are a lot of ways I move rage through my body. One is if I'm really feeling like this cannot be suppressed and I have space to fully rage, then I might literally scream and thrash around in some way and try to like literally act that through my body. It's a little hard where I live, but there are moments where I know that landlord's not above us or things like that. So I just say that to say, I guess some spaces just aren't set up for that too. Sometimes people will use pillows. Screaming into a pillow can be really helpful. Going into the woods if you can. One of my favorites is going near a train. And when the train goes by, it
That's such a good idea.
blends it in. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes screaming from the top of a mountain, if you can do it, is really cathartic because it's just amazing how expansive and vast it can feel to like yell at the void in that way. We've talked a lot about using the earth, and you specifically named ways in which we can use the earth to recycle emotion, and rage is definitely one that we can work with the earth around.
How would you do it with the earth, with rage?
So for me, it's really similar to the way that you've described it in the past, where you root down, connect with the earth. I always ask permission. That's, I think, very important. It's rare that I get a no, but I have. And I think that's important to honor. I think there are some places where the earth is like, nope, I don't want your shit today. And be the place where I can respect that. Sometimes the earth wants an offering, but I'm going to do this for you. It's that reciprocal relationship. And that's not always the case. Sometimes the earth is very, yes, I'll absorb it, I'll take it in. But I think,
interesting.
I think in a lot of spiritual spaces I've been in, or earth honoring spaces that I've been in, there's been a lot of not asking permission. And when I first started to be present with that concept and do it more often, it completely shifted the way that I have been in relationship with the earth. So it has also helped me like understand my intuition more and strengthen that and listen to what I'm hearing. I ask permission.
I'm taking that in and I'm just noticing it as I integrate it in my, yes, of course, ask for permission, because this is a living creature who has a right to say no.
That's right. And wherever you're at, that energy is going to be different. The earth energy under this office is very different than the earth energy in my home. a mile and a half down the road. So, or at the Fells where I walk or whatnot. Yeah. So asking permission, and then I'll often just have a dialogue with the earth like I would a human. It's very similar. Like I always tell people, this is just about creating relationship. It's really no different than you or I or somebody else that I'm in relationship with. Sometimes it can be really helpful, especially if you're on a new place on the earth, to actually identify yourself, say your full name, where you're from, and why you're there, why you're wanting to connect with it. We wouldn't just walk into somebody's house and not introduce ourselves.
Beautiful.
So introducing yourself and then stating the intention. I'm here to ask permission to get some support in recycling this rage that I'm feeling. And is there anything that you may want from me in order to support me in that? What can I offer you? And again, is there consent here? And then oftentimes from there, it's a visualization process of if I have permission, then it's often this very similar visualization process that you describe of just like watching the rage drain down through my body into the earth, watching that be recycled, and then siphoning back up, grounding, supportive energy. Yeah, and that's very helpful for me. It's really nice to do it with a tree, as you've described in the past too. And the other thing here is like when you're connecting with the earth energy through a tree, asking permission of the tree and the earth, right? Because that's a different living being as well. Yeah. So that's how I'd work with the earth. Yeah.
And I love that just even us talking about rage, right? So rage or anger is a secondary emotion in the sense it protects from usually like sadness or grief and fear.
Yeah.
And so that's what started me when we were doing Pilates is I was in so much activated rage of what was happening around us and to the people I care about, including those I haven't met yet. I remember the instructor we were doing these arm things and I was on my belly and he was like, imagine a nut in the middle of your back. And I was like, yeah. He's no gently. And I'm like, it's a testicle. And I just started like allowing myself to have these violent visualizations. Like I talk about right sizing and being in interdependence and being in love and staying in love. And there is righteous anger. Right. And so allowing myself the opportunity to visualize setting boundaries and harming people in my mind in ways that represented the level of harm I was experiencing in my emotional and psychic space.
Yeah.
Allowed so much of this energy to leave my body because it gave me a sense of like fighting back. And while I was imagining like different ways of fighting back or setting a boundary, I kept baring my teeth and grunting. Like, and we've done that before in this space.
Yeah.
And it was literally me just allowing that energy to move out of me because when I keep it in, especially when I'm scared of my safety, it harms my body. Like the level of adrenaline and cortisol that we all carry is harmful to our body.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. I think what's particularly important here too is that I always like to remind people the violent thoughts, right? Whether that's external violence or internal violence, meaning suicidality, the thoughts of themselves are not actually harmful. The fantasies themselves are not actually harmful. And we do more harm by not thinking it and not talking about it than we do by allowing it to play out the way you're describing for exactly the reason you just said. It allows a cortisol release and it allows us to also see, okay, if I were to actually act on that, what might happen? It also allows us to go a step further to some degree, which can be really helpful for recentering ourselves too. And that doesn't need to happen all the time, but it happens for some people. Yeah.
And so interesting, I'm tapping into collective rage right now because there are some people out there who don't need to think about this.
Yeah, so true.
Who don't need to think about what are the ramifications if I do this thing? Because for some people, there is no ramification.
That's a great point.
So I'm just sitting in this is not fair that I have to demonstrate so much self-restraint when there are a few people out there that don't have to and impact the collective.
And in fact, have gotten away with it time and time again. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm going to practice. I'm sitting on a couch that has a cushion. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to release this rage that I've just channeled, right? Because of this conversation. I'm going to pull on the cushion, right? And with the intention of, this is mine, right? My safety, my land, my body. And I'm going to bare my teeth, but I'm going to let the anger drain so I don't have to carry that. And I'm going to keep the power of it. Is that okay? Okay.
Yeah.
Just going to do this very fast. My body, my life, my freedom. Oh, I was able to take a big in breath. And it's the tension like slowly draining from my back. It's interesting. There's grief that's coming as I'm just like letting that out.
Yeah. Just notice if the grief needs any space here, wants any space here.
It's interesting that you named suicidality. I've been struggling this week.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not surprised.
It just feels like so big. And like even me naming that allowed the grief to come a little bit closer, but there is this wall I notice of I'm so tired.
You've been doing a lot of work.
Yeah. What's coming up in your body?
I think for me, I'm back to empathy. Yeah. I'm just holding space for you. Yeah.
It's interesting. So do I share the grief? Do I let it come out? Because there's this interesting thing being socialized as female. If I share a vulnerable feeling, I almost feel like I'm putting it on somebody. And so there's resistance to even doing that. Like when I was apologizing for sobbing at the end.
Yeah.
So there's this impulse of, if I were to do one more squeeze and something were to come up, do you have capacity to not hold it for me, but just to hold space for it?
Yeah. So does me saying empathy make you think one or the other? Yeah. What comes up for you when you hear me say empathy?
When I hear you say empathy, I feel like you're aligning with my pain and not. And so it's so interesting, right? So zooming out, I either take care of me or I take care of you.
Yeah.
That's the roles that we've been taught instead of like community care is really self-care because I'm holding the community, the space that we've created right here and alongside you all. But there's this resistance for being cared for or cared about even. I think it's cared about. It feels very vulnerable.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, empathy is caring about you. Like it's not me taking on your pain in a psychically empathic way.
Or like saviorism.
No.
Okay.
I care about you. And yeah. And I want you to be able to have the space for you right now. Yeah.
So funny. I have tears and then this tension in my jaw.
Yeah.
Dissociation, intense activation in my upper back, almost like I'm going to get punished. It's so interesting. Okay. So let's like zoom out. I've been in so many spaces, and I don't feel this way with you, Leah, but I've been in so many spaces where people, and it's predominantly white spaces that I move in, will say it's safe for you, please. Oh. And when I show up, because of the grief is so mired with rage, it scares people.
Yeah.
And what gets activated in them often requires my cleanup because they might feel attacked. And then it's so interesting. So now it's, you can't do this, Judy. It's going to be on video.
Yeah, I know.
Stop breathing. So funny.
Yeah, I screamed and you stopped breathing.
I know. Why is that?
I think for me, it was like I hate that we even have to think about this stuff. Yeah, it's a little bit of a mind fuck.
Why do we have to think about this stuff, Leah?
Because it's not safe.
It's not safe.
Not safe to have things like this recorded and to be out in the world. Yeah, especially for someone with identities like yours.
Yeah. So in case any of you feel unsafe because of the body that you're in, you are not crazy.
You're not. And also Judy's experience she just shared, I hear that from tons of people of color. Like your situation is sadly not unique.
So interesting. You just naming that I'm a person of color. My back is okay. Maybe it's a little safer. Even though for me, I'm like clearly a person of color. I am in so many spaces where I'm not seen or understood for what that means in my body. And it's interesting. I have this voice now like, Judy, why do you have to make it about race all the time?
And whose voice might that be?
Tell me, Leah.
I'm asking you. I have my assumptions.
I know, but I need your body
where
to
we
say
get in
it.
trouble. But yes, I can say it for you, and you
you.
can correct me.
I'm like shrinking down.
Yeah, I know. Really, that's the voice of a lot of, to make it more open, it's the voice of the oppressor. Yeah. And that can come in many different forms. Yeah. We often have parts that internalize our oppressors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it was like trying to make me shrink down and not talk about it because it is not safe to talk about. And so part of what we're talking about here is how do you create spaces where it's safe for you to do this clearing work so you're not controlled by all of the epigenetic impact of ancestral trauma.
Yes.
Right. And now I'm just feeling much more open and like I can feel my feet again.
Good.
I have an impulse to pull on the couch with another thing to say.
Go ahead.
If I cry, I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. I'm so tired. And I deserve to be here without working for it. So interesting. I feel this deep settling and my eyes won't open. It's like it's almost this experience of being back in utero, the first experience of being held without needing to do anything to be nurtured. And if I'm going with the image of being in utero, it's like I'm just protected by this sac and also this body in like an origin story. Oh, there's power. Yeah, there's a lot of power now in my body and calmness. Like I feel much more centered now, which is really important for those who do not feel like they have control over their lives.
Yeah.
Because what happens if you don't clear this out, right? Like sometimes I think about the level of rage. When I wasn't actively clearing it out, it would land on my kids in the form of like, why aren't you cleaning up your shit? I'm like pissed that I have to clean up the shit of, and then I land that intensity on my kids. So they feel really bad about themselves. And it gives me this sense of power, but it's not the right power and it's on the wrong bodies.
That's right. Yeah. And something else to name with that I see happen a lot is either external projection, what you're describing, or internal projection or introjection, which would be then us tearing ourselves up, saying mean things to ourselves or about ourselves. Yeah. Yeah. Would it be okay if I talked a little bit more about movement pieces?
Yes, please.
Okay. A few other things to consider with movement here. Some of you may already have movement practices, and I'm using that very loosely because I think we overuse the word exercise a lot in our society in ways that are not always the healthiest for us. And some of us have practices of just putting on some awesome music and dancing once a day, or walking in the morning, or whatever it is. There are lots of ways we get movement in our body. And the only difference between regular everyday movement and movement that's clearing, like more clearing, is intention. That's the only difference. And so for people that might already have a running practice, let's say, like I know somebody that prays when he runs, like that is his way of channeling spiritual energy. So he prays when he runs every day. I know people that set an intention that with every footstep, they're dropping energy into the earth, right? With every breath, they're picking it up and taking in some nourishing goodness, right? There are lots of different ways we can work with this. And I always like to remind people there's no right or wrong. It's just whatever feels right for you and your body and the way that you set these intentions. And just, again, keeping in mind the permissions practices. And then, and also the other thing is asking consent of your body. We don't do that a lot at all. We think that, okay, I need to be on this exercise regimen of moving my body 3 days a week, this very specific way. And that is often how people hurt themselves. in lots of different ways, right? So is my body up for this today? So something I often ask people is, will this feel nourishing for me? Is a really important question to ask yourself if you're caught in any sort of movement practices that may actually not be feeling the most aligned for you. So check that out first, then think about adding intention to the practice. So that feels really important. And then the other thing too is for people that may not be able to move their bodies in a really normal way, what society deems as normal, to think about other ways that we might move energy. So one of them is simply visualization practices that can move huge amounts of energy without physical movement. Also, things like baths and showers can be great at washing energy through us. The element, working with the elements. So in this case, it would be water. Yeah.
I just want to rewind for a second. You were talked about like even imagining it. So professional athletes will imagine like hitting a ball without moving their body, and it actually triggers the muscle movement. So again, like if I'm sitting in a visualization and just imagining me like, and not doing that, especially if I'm in a space where I feel unsafe and someone is encroaching on my space, I can imagine myself doing that. Right. And that moves the energy out of me, and I can just be sitting here doing that, and I can feel my muscles activating in doing that. So yeah, get creative. The brain, the mind is so amazing in our capacity that if we can imagine it, it can come.
That's right. Yeah. 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 And there are lots of cultures and traditions that practice that sort of movement. It's not physical. Like most of yoga here in the US, for instance, is not actually traditional yoga. Physical practices of yoga are not actually traditional yogic practices. That's a very new phenomenon. A lot of it was mental and emotional, was not physical. Yeah, a lot of it was much more meditation
And breath
practices,
right?
And breath type
And
of
breath,
practices. Yeah. And breath is another great way to move energy. Glad you just said that. Another way that if for whatever reason our bodies can't physically move as easily, that the breath can.
Yeah, that actually happened. I had my cycle breaker group today, and I had touched on this like collective like terror for me. I started just going into a trauma reaction. I had all these tears, and I had asked the participants, I was like, can you unmute yourselves and let me hear you breathe? And it was not only an invitation for me to feel like I was in community, it was also an invitation for them to move that energy out of their body through the breath.
Yeah.
That's a good reminder.
Yeah. You're also reminding me of a moment where I don't know if anybody listening to this uses the app Marco Polo, but you're able to like record videos and send them to people. It's like a walkie-talkie, kind of visual walkie-talkie. And I had sent a recording to a friend, I don't know, maybe a week ago. And when she pulled it back, she was like, I loved hearing you breathe. It was so calming. And so it just brings us back to co-regulation. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And right, reminding us, I think this is why I look forward to our recording sessions every week. Like I get to be with Leah in community, in regulation, in relationship with, right?
Yeah.
My stomach. Can you hear that?
I could. I thought it was something outside the room. That's funny.
Digesting and oh yeah, I am safe. It's that sense of, oh, it's so funny. I'm like present in my body now. Okay, I can show up in this space in relationship with you however I need to show up, because I'm taking care of what my body needs energetically. Like I'm practicing these skills, and you're able to show up and practice your skills and give mutual consent of, can I do this in this particular way? How does it land? And you're like, I have resource. And so it's just, I'm really appreciating that particularly today, I think, Leah.
Yeah, good. Yeah. Yeah, I'm appreciating the space that we've co-created together in the sense of there's like an ease and a flow to it that I really appreciate a lot. Yeah, so thank you.
Yeah. And I'm already imagining my drive back, because I was talking about like, how do you move this? So one of the places that I feel comfortable screaming in is in my car.
I love it.
Because I'm driving and no one knows who the fuck I am. So what I'll do is like the similar thing of when we were like twisting and baring our teeth, I will literally pull on my driver's wheel and just be like, I'm fucking it. And then just get it out of my body. Let it, I just do it once, right? Because you got to control it. Do it once, even just imagining it. Oh, this is going to feel so good when I do it. You let it settle until it plateaus, and then you can do it again.
Yeah.
And you're just sensing for what needs to be expressed and let out of your body.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I think what I want to end with too, to go back to some parts work that we've introduced here, is remembering that when there are these aspects of us that feel really violent or rageful and we're acting them out, and we might notice other parts of us wanting to suppress that because it's scary. There is a reminder here that this is a part of us, but it's not all of us. And it's not the totality of who we are. But
Right.
sometimes parts also need to be able to vent and express. And it's not realistic to think that we're going to be in self energy, for those of you that know IFS language, or to be centered every minute of every day. Right. So these are the practices of dipping into these parts, helping them vent and express, and then coming back to being centered or self-led.
I have a request.
Yes.
My body would like to lean on your body.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm gonna just, and like, we'll just
Do
see.
you want to be shoulder to shoulder?
I would like to be shoulder
Yeah.
to shoulder, and I'm just leaning in. Look at my
Mhm.
belly.
I noticed my deep breath and then heard your belly.
My head has an impulse to put it down on your shoulder. Can
Yeah.
I? And then I'll see.
Yeah.
If it's too heavy, you'll tell me.
It's probably too heavy.
Look at me. I'm like, my head is very heavy. It's so heavy. There's so many. Are you sure it's not too heavy?
It's not heavy at all.
I haven't even let my head down yet. Can you feel that it's like I'm still holding it? Like this?
Probably. That's probably why I don't feel it. I really do not feel it. Yeah.
Now I'm letting it go.
That
I was just testing you to see if you could.
what's funny is that actually feels better for my nervous system, because it's like the weighted energy,
Oh, interesting.
like a weighted blanket.
Oh, so I have more. Look at this. It's still not too much.
Nope.
How's your body feeling?
Good. Steady. Strong.
Uh-huh.
Supportive. But not like effortful. There's no effort in this either. You know what I mean?
And discomfort.
No, there's no discomfort. It's just
Interesting.
like, but I don't need to put effort into holding you up. It's like, I'm just here.
It's so interesting because when you said no effort, I was like, are you sure? And then look at me, I'm like, let me reciprocate. Would you like anything in return? Because I can't ask for support if I don't reciprocate. Look at this. Do you want anything?
A hug would be nice.
Oh, I can do a hug.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. That is our alchemy for today.
I feel like I want to do spirit things.
So if you liked this podcast, please share it, like it, subscribe, and send it out into the world for folks who are looking for some resourcing and another way of viewing how to get through this. And we will see you soon.
Yes.
Take care.
Soon.